I use act as if you are or act like. Does it really matter? It probably
It
doesn't matter, does it?
really matters.
Oh, you should say you are instead of act like.
You are. I have A/B tested the heck out of this in multiple tools.
Today, I'm very excited to be joined by Nicole Leffer. If you don't know who Nicole is, she's an AI advisor who helps B2B marketers improve their result with AI. Nicole specializes in AI training for marketing teams. Her course is Foundations in Generative AI for B2B Marketing. Nicole, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
Thank you so much. I'm doing great. I'm really excited to talk to you today.
Well, I am as well. And Nicole and I are going to explore how to level up your AI skills utilizing kind of Nicole's framework, if you will. Before we go there, I want to know how you got into AI. Like there's a story there, I'm sure of it. So start wherever you want to start.
There's always a story there, I think. So for me, my story was not actually all that intentional. I was the head of marketing at a B2B SaaS company.
Okay.
And I was, I had just started at this company. This was in 2021 and going, what is it like that I really need to set my team apart? We were a startup. I really knew we had to be scrappy. And I was on my Facebook account one day and saw an ad for an AI writing tool and clicked on it.
Probably
Did the
Jasper,
free
right? It was probably
It
Jasper.
actually was not Jasper. It was a tool
Wow.
called AnyWord.
Oh,
And I clicked on it, signed up for the free trial. I was like, this is so cool. I think I used up my free allotment almost instantly, got on a demo with them and brought this tool on for my team and instantly became obsessed. Now, this was 2021. This was pre ChatGPT or any of that kind of stuff. It was not something we were talking about all that much back then. And I brought this on and I started using it every day. I had everyone on my team using it every day. And at that point, the tool was pretty much brand new. It was designed to help you write Facebook posts or something. I mean, it was not like there was a lot there. And I went, I don't care what it's made for. We are figuring out how to kind of hack around what it's made for and use this for all the things. So we were using their interface for Facebook posts. It was writing us email subject lines. It was writing us, and it was very data driven and how their interface was. It was just really cool. And we saw really great results. They kept adding features and functionality. We would immediately figure out how do we take advantage of this. So I just got really excited about this technology. And about a year later, went separate ways from that company and was like, I need to decide what I'm going to do next. Where am I going to go? And I was like, this AI stuff is really fun. So while I'm figuring that out, I'm going to dive into every other tool I can find that exists, understand how it works, all of these things. So got a lot deeper. And all of this, meanwhile, I am sharing in a CMO community that I am in on Slack. And it had always been crickets. It was just crickets, still crickets. And then ChatGPT came out. I was on in the first day or two, 3 days, I don't know. But I was on very quickly because I was in that world, playing with it, experimenting with it. I laugh now because I have old Instagram stories that was just with my friends. I was like, you can't believe what I'm doing. It was I had to have been one of the first people doing that kind of stuff and sharing all of this in the CMO community. And then it started getting a little traction and people started going, we don't know anything about this, but I think that Nicole Leffer does.
mm.
And so one day a CMO in the community was like, would you mind doing a Zoom for a few of us just to share with us what you know about this technology for marketing? I'm like, yeah, sure. 3 or 4 people. Sure. And I think 100 people signed up for that Zoom, 100 CMOs. And I was like, oh, I better put together a slide deck. I better take this seriously. Put together a deck, got on, basically trained all of these CMOs on how to use ChatGPT for marketing. And the next thing I knew, I was getting messages on LinkedIn, on Slack. Would you come do exactly what you did for my team? I'll pay you.
Wow.
Sure. Yeah, okay. That sounds fun. And after I did a few of
Let me
those,
guess.
the
This was
word
probably
started.
very, very early 2023 kind of thing.
Yeah, this was very early 2023.
Right.
And I just started spreading kind of word of mouth quickly. She'll come in and do this with your team. And suddenly I was like, you know what? I don't think I want to be a CMO anymore. This is so much fun. It's so exciting. And so I have been doing it full time since the beginning of 2023. And I've worked with companies from Series A startups to Fortune 50 companies, household names, some of the biggest brands in the world. And it's been really fun because I've gotten to help so many marketers adopt this technology and start understanding how to use it. But I also get to see like all of these creative people and how they're putting it to use and where it's working for them and where it's not. And it's been a whirlwind, but it has been so much fun. And it's obviously way beyond Chat GPT now. I mean, there's a lot
Oh
of other
yeah,
tools we're working with too, but
I'm curious about today, where you're at with like the kinds of things you're doing for these businesses. Like, tell us about, you've got a course, and what kind of training do you do today? Because obviously, a lot. It's true that still there's a bazillion businesses that have not yet adopted this, but what kind of stuff are you doing now?
it really like I have a variety of things I'm doing depending on where they were. So, the main staple of what I do is webinar trainings that are remote webinars for marketing teams.
Got it.
So, this is basically what I've been doing from the beginning. Of course, they have evolved over time, but with these, I will come in and whether it is just a standard like, Chat GPT or generative AI for marketing, or I do customized versions. I have like different levels of customization. So it really depends on the company and their needs. And they could be beginner level, they could be kind of mixed level, which is what most teams are. Is they have people who've never used it and they have people who are pretty into it. And then I also have some teams I'm working with on some more advanced stuff. So I've done, like workshops and consulting on like how to build out like very specific kinds of GPTs for or automations or that kind of thing. So it really depends on the company, which is what makes my job so fun.
That is so cool.
And yeah, and then I also have companies I work with on an ongoing basis on like consulting how to like really start bringing this in. Because while a lot of companies have started dabbling in it at this point, especially in the tech space, which is a lot of what I'm working with, there's still a lot of companies that even if they think they've started dabbling with it, they actually have barely even touched it. And or there's a couple people that have like gone deep in it, but the vast majority like haven't used it for much more than like, hey, write an email subject line kind of a thing.
Right.
So huge variety, but it is so much fun. And then I do have a course that I came out with because everybody I was working with were these companies and their teams, and I was like, I want to do something that's for individual marketers. I had started getting a huge following on LinkedIn, so I want to do something that individual people can take too. And I created it for that. And now I've actually noticed I created my own biggest competition, I think, because I actually have a lot of CMOs going, I want your course, which is like 7 hours of on demand training online. They want their course for their entire team. So now I have
That's kind
companies
of cool.
having licenses for their entire team. So it has been a whirlwind, and who knows, where it's going. I'm kind of riding the AI wave and seeing how it evolves and
Very
loving every
cool.
minute of it. So
Very cool. It's true that the world needs people to help them understand how to use this thing, because I keep telling everyone it's really just the equivalent of a flashing cursor. You don't really know what you can do with this thing until you begin to start messing around with it. So what do you want to say to marketers right now, or businesses that are listening in general that are maybe what's the big advantage if they get this right? What's the unlock that can happen? Because you've worked with so many different teams. Like,
yeah.
what is like the other side of it once someone has actually figured this stuff out?
So first, I want to say there's not a point where you're going to like truly have it figured out because it changes so quickly that there's always going to be something to continue learning. So just like there's no end point to that learning. So I just want to make sure everybody knows that. But the biggest unlocks, I mean, there's three, right? There's one, the biggest I think a lot of people understand is efficiency. You can get more done in the same amount of time. Like, I probably would have had to hire 5 people by now in my own business to do what I can do by myself every single day. And I work hard. Like, I'm not going to say I'm not working really, really hard, but I also like can take 2 weeks off and go to Europe. Like, it's not like I have no life at all. So you can just do so much more every single day because of this technology. So that's the big one I think people recognize. The next thing is that it actually improves quality.
Mm.
So, like, actually, I'm seeing consistently that once you understand how to use the technology, not only are you getting more done, you're getting better done.
Mm.
And the quality of what you're doing is improving significantly. And then along with that, it like, I guess it sort of goes with both of those things, but you are able to open up more things that you can do because you don't have to necessarily bring in experts that are really expensive to help you out. Like, I, as an individual, can have in my pocket any kind of consultant I can imagine to help me with any kind of project I'm working on. And being able to like do things myself that I have never had the capability to do before is a huge unlock with the tech.
I agree completely, and it's absolutely fascinating. It kind of reminds me of the early days of the internet, right? I mean, like I'm old enough to remember what it was like before the internet, and then once I got on the internet, I'm like, "Are you kidding me? I can search almost anything I can imagine. I don't have to go to a library to get this stuff." I mean, it's kind of that kind of a mental unlock once you begin to understand what this thing can do. So,
Yeah,
you
it's
know, it's crazy. So you've developed a really good process to kind of help people develop skills, solid skills really with AI. So I'd love to kind of start with the beginning step of your process. Where does one begin if they want to try to, for lack of better words, level up their AI usage?
So the first thing you need to do, and this applies no matter what quote unquote use cases you're talking about, also, this is not like a specific use case based thing. You need to learn how to communicate with these tools,
Mhm.
right? Like, what are the important things that go into a prompt? And I hate the term prompt engineering. Like, I wish we would just stop with that because prompting is just communicating.
Right,
Marketers are actually really good at prompting because they're good communicators if they can get out of their head like this
right.
techy sounding language of prompt engineering. But getting really good at communicating with the tools and understanding what kind of context does it need to do a good job on what you want it to do. Well, how do you give it really clear instructions? How do you structure prompts to get good responses? And what are the kind of things you need to ask of it if you want it to give you what you want on the other end? So the first thing that you need to learn about using generative AI is how to talk to the AI in a way that works for you. And that's a really important key too, is your communication style is going to be unique to you personally if
Mm.
you want it to work really well. So how do you develop your unique communication style with the AI that's going to generate the results that are what you're looking for? Skill number one that everybody needs to learn.
Okay, so let's talk about this a little bit because I've had a lot of people on the show and they've all got different perspectives on how to structure a prompt. And you talked about context a little bit, but
Mhm.
even though it's true, everybody has their own thing. What are you finding to be some of the through lines, if you will, that
Yeah.
would be beneficial for anyone who's just getting started with
Yeah.
this?
So the first thing is like, overall, I would say the order you put things in, usually that can be really personal. Like, as long as it's logical, like, just like you would explain a story different than I would explain a story, it doesn't mean one is better than the other as far as somebody understanding it. Like, the order you go in overall does not matter, with one exception. I will put one exception to that. And that is that you should always be starting your conversation, your prompt of the start of a conversation with who you telling the AI who it is in the context of this conversation. And you want to think about who would be, if I could work on what I'm about to work on with literally anybody on earth, who would I want that person to be that's working on this with me? And literally tell the AI at the beginning of the conversation, give it this persona. You are the best social media marketer with specialized expertise in LinkedIn B2B copywriting in the world. And you have deep knowledge of, the healthcare tech industry, whatever it is, get really specific, give it skills, give it expertise, all of the things that somebody would need to do a phenomenal job at whatever you're going to ask of it.
Real quick
And
question
then
on that.
yeah.
So I use act as if you are or act like. Does it really matter? It probably
It
doesn't matter, does it?
really matters.
Oh, you should say you are instead of act like?
You are I have A/B tested the heck out of this in multiple tools.
Oh, that's good to know.
And actually saying you are, and let me tell you, I have a hypothesis of why this is. And it
Okay.
gets to the heart of how incredibly smart these tools are and why understanding like how they think and how they work matters. If I tell you to act as something, I am telling you to mimic and pretend to be something.
Oh, yeah, good
If
point.
I tell you you are something,
Then you
you
actually
are that.
personify it.
You are
Okay.
going to behave. So if you're saying act as this, you're telling it to be somebody pretending to be an expert. But
Okay.
if you tell it you are an expert, it's going to, and you will see that nuance of difference in how it handles whatever you ask of it. So that subtle difference in the language actually affects the outputs that you're going to get at the end of the day. Now, act as will be better than having nothing on there
Right.
to tell it that context of what your expectations are. But you are versus act as is a very big difference. So
Oh, cool. Any other little things that maybe we need to unlearn other than just you are?
so that is the first one that I think like because it's like you got to start your prompts that way and then you once you have that like then it can get to be more personalized communication style. I would say of unlearning there has been some really bad viral advice not to say please to the AI and that's awful advice. So if you do not say please you need to unlearn that. There's actually studies that have come out that it improves the quality of the
What
response
about
when you
thank you?
say please and thank you. Yes.
Okay.
Anything being polite and nice to the AI. If you have and so like, some people, they're naturally going to say please and thank you. Other people, they're going to have to learn to say please and thank you to the AI. In general, the more human you treat it, the better it's going to be. If you actually, I know it's maybe not the best psychologically for us to anthropomorphize and pretend the AI is real, but if you talk to it like a person, think of it like a person, use human psychology on it, the more human the psychology you use with it, the better it's going to do in general. And consistently, like study after study is showing like different things that work with people also work with the AI. One of the other things, if we're talking unlearn, is don't believe every single tip that you get out there of like the little prompting hacks. Some of them are phenomenal, but a lot of these people do not actually understand why what they're working works in the context it works in.
Okay.
And one of the things I have discovered, so I was a psychology major in college, not a business major or tech or anything like that. I was a psych major and I have noticed that these tools really do respond just like a human would. Like a lot of psychology and like a lot of psychology with humans, context matters, the task matters. So when you tell it in certain contexts, like there's been like stuff that's gone around like you should offer the AI a tip. Like you should offer it financial benefit in order because
Well, and
it's
we had
so
Russ
smart.
Summers on the show who said, "Hey, go out and get yourself a coffee." You know what I mean? Like,
Right. So actually, like those kinds of things, they only work in a context that would work with a human. Like there's actual psychological studies that sometimes money as a reward for certain types of tasks actually decreases the quality of that task. And the same thing happens with the AI.
okay.
I tell the AI, you have had the perfect amount of coffee and caffeine to work at peak performance in a lot of my prompts because if it's well caffeinated and you got the perfect amount of sleep, like I'll put this into my prompts. But you don't want to do that in a creative prompt because it actually believes, and there are psychological studies on humans that do this, which is why the AI believes this, that like being ideally caffeinated or too much sleep can actually decrease creativity. So like you have to kind of understand that things work in some contexts and not others. It depends what you're doing. That's getting a little advanced on the prompting to get to
But
that point.
hey,
So
that is so cool. I mean, I have some people who have been listening to this from episode 1, and this is like their minds getting blown. So this is really cool. So I mean, the key take home I'm hearing you say here is a couple things. Number one, please and thank you. will actually result in a better output, just like it does with real humans. Number two, if you do things with humans, you should try it with the AI, because the AI is a neural network essentially that is trained kind of like the brain works. And what about your thoughts on take your time? Have you tried that one too?
That's another one. So usually I'll tell you how I structure my prompts
Yeah,
in general. And again, I with the caveat that aside from that, you are to start setting the stage, you got to find your own formula and everything that works for you. But
right.
what works for me and when I'm writing my prompts, you are the best XYZ in the world with this specialized skills and expertise. Then I tell it like, hey, this is what we're going to do together. Usually, like, we're going to be doing this is a little context of the situation. This is what we're going to be doing together. Here is how I want you to do it step by step. And then I will break down how. Now, I don't do this if it's a super simple thing, but if it is like remotely complex, I will give it the chain of thinking that I want it to work through. So, first, I want you to go visit this website. I want you to read this context. Then I want you to read the information I'm going to provide you later about the persona that we're serving. Then I want you to think through this document I've given you and like put all of these pieces together. And I want you to write a plan for XYZ about this. And I will go through step by step exactly what I want it to think through and how I want it to think through it.
Is this called prompt chaining? Because I've heard people use that phrase.
This is actually called, oh gosh, my brain just froze. It is not called prompt chaining is multiple prompts
I
getting
see.
stacked together.
Yeah.
This is chain of thought
Okay, got it.
prompting. So,
Okay.
and don't get caught up too much in like the
Yeah.
lingo because like
But if you want to learn more about it, you can search
posturing.
you
Like,
can search
somebody
chain
named
of
it.
thought and maybe learn more about this if you wanted to.
Yeah, so if you research chain of thought, there are actual like studies on this, but I will tell it, you know, take a deep breath and do the following in order.
Okay.
And then I'll give it the steps of what to do. Then I will tell it that this task is vital to my career and I really appreciate your attention to doing like a really good job on it. Some kind of like a psychological motivator that this actually matters. It's important to me, not just some random task I've thrown at you, but it actually is going to have an impact on my life.
Mhm.
Then I will, yeah, at the end of it, like, I'll thank it and everything for what we're doing. And then I will usually give it whatever context I have promised it earlier in the prompt because I'll tell it, hey, at the end, I'm going to give you sections of context. So maybe that's my persona. Maybe it's the ideas I want it to turn into something. Maybe that is like history of something, whatever context it might need. That usually drops at the end of my prompt. This is just kind of a format I've gotten used to like cranking out. It works really well. There's elements of throughout this that are well researched. The you are statement, the chain of thought thinking, the take a deep breath, pause, don't rush this,
Mhm.
the emotional motivation to do a great job. Like all of this is very well studied. And then I've tested and figured out how it works for me, how to put it all together. And then I'm using this is very advanced, but and I actually have a free video on it on my website if anybody wants to know more about what I'm about to talk about. But I use what are called delimiters, which are a way to give the prompt structure so that it understands different chunks of thought, essentially.
Yeah, that's
Um,
like the thing below the question mark, the little slash slash kind of thing. Is that what you mean by a delimiter or physical like
so you can use any kind of symbol that you want. Even like a lot of people are naturally using delimiters with quotation marks. Like you put quotation marks around a block of thoughts and you're using
Oh, there you
that's a
go.
delimiter. The problem with quotation marks as using it as in your prompts, it'll understand it, but you might have quotes within your quotes and like it
Yeah,
gets
yeah, yeah, yeah.
confused what the thought is, what's what. So I use like 3 slashes in a row at the beginning and the end of blocks of context.
Love it.
But I have, if anybody's interested, it's totally free. There's a video on my website in my resource section about how to use delimiters in your prompts. Please feel free to go watch that because it kind of takes some visual to really understand it.
Sweet. We'll
But
make
once
sure we
I've
get that in the show notes as well.
yeah, absolutely. And then once you've got that, I've got a good prompt, I'll submit it. And then prompt chaining comes when maybe you have multiple steps. You kind of need it to think through one thing, like actually do the step before you now move to the next step. And that's where you're actually chaining multiple prompts together.
Well, I love this. First of all, we've gone down a really fascinating rabbit trail that I know a lot of people are like, you could stop there. It was that good, but we're not done,
Thank
everybody.
you.
There's
Yep.
another step to your process, right? Which is
Yeah.
this is just the first step, really understanding how to communicate with the tool.
Yeah.
What's the next part of your process?
So that communication learning, like that's really for all tools, right? Like you need to learn how to communicate with any of them. And then the next thing I would be learning right now is what are the like core features that go through all of these different tools and which one does the tool you're using have? And like this almost the skills, the senses that it has the ability to leverage and use. So these are things like, inputs, PDF files, Word documents, what can I upload to the tool? And also how do they work? Like if you as of the time you and I are talking, like this could change by the time somebody's listening to this, but if you upload a PDF file, for example, to ChatGPT or Claude or one of these tools, they cannot see the images in that file. So, like, you need to understand that it can read all of the words, but it cannot see any of the visual information. That's important kinds of stuff to understand about how these tools work to get the most out of
Well, and you
them.
could test that, right? Obviously, in the future, like
Yeah.
you could put a PDF with graphics in there and just ask it what it sees, right? Or to
Yes.
describe what it is, right? And see if it's able to do that. But the good news
Yeah.
is you could put screenshots in there, right?
Exactly. So that's the next thing you do need to understand is like, does your tool have vision ability? And vision is where it can see an image and it can look at it and understand it like a person can. And so that can come as like a JPEG or a PNG file or a screenshot, which may technically be one of those formats, depending on where you're taking it. But
Yeah.
you could just paste in a screenshot. So if you're uploading, like, let's say you have an ebook that you've written that's your company's, it's got some infographics and stuff in it, and you want to repurpose that into other content, you need to understand I can give it the PDF file, but those infographics I need to take screenshots of and also give it the screenshots and give it the context of like, these are the images in that file that you're looking at, and ask it to visually look at them and understand them. It can understand color, layout, like anything a person would. Different tools are at different quality of being able to do this, like how good it is at it, but know if your tool can do that. ChatGPT can, Claude can, Gemini can. The biggies all can do that right now, but you need to understand that. You need to know, can it connect to the internet, right? Like how does it work when it connects to the internet? What is it doing? Can it give me source links? Like, can it search the internet or only go to a link that I give it? Understanding that. Can I talk to it? Can it talk to me? Like all of these things. When I talk to it, what is happening? Is it just taking what I've said and transcribing it? Or does it have the ability to listen and hear and understand intonation and emotion in my voice? These tools are evolving. They are getting to the point that they can do that. So, all of this fundamental understanding on the inputs and then also on the outputs.
Now, real
What
quick
can
on
you,
the inputs.
yeah.
Do you know, because these tools aren't really good with their marketing. None of them are. They're horrible. So do you find it's useful to ask it what are the different, is there a question we could ask it to get it to tell us what it's capable of? Or do you feel like that doesn't really work and you just have to try it?
A lot of it doesn't know what it's capable of.
I see.
Sometimes it does. So, like, you can ask it, but, like, don't necessarily believe it.
Yeah.
Sometimes it'll tell you it can't do something, and all you have to say back is, "Yes, you can. I've seen you do it before," and it'll be like, "Oh, okay." And it'll do it. A lot of times they underestimate their own capabilities.
Yeah.
So, and also there is a thing with all of these tools for them, as far as I know, I mean, pretty much anything you're probably using, there is going to be a gap between when it was trained through, of like when it read the entire internet and learned all these things. There's going to be a gap in time between when that training cutoff was and when you're using it. And because of that, you need to understand that, like, if you're asking it, like, what can you do? Like, ChatGPT is probably trained on the internet, and there's probably been several months since it was trained, and it knows what it was trained on several months ago, not what it can necessarily do today. Sometimes it understands its capabilities, sometimes it does not, but that training cutoff can be challenging. So if you pay attention, if you're using any of the big tools, and when I say the big tools, I'm talking like OpenAI, Anthropic, which is Claude,
Google Gemini,
Google's products or
Meta.
Microsoft's products, you know, like those are like really the biggies.
Yeah.
If you're using any of those, like their own social media, like they may not have the best marketing in the world. They're getting better at it. Especially like OpenAI's marketing has been getting significantly better. But if you go and look at like their, like just follow their social media and their blog posts, they'll release this stuff. But also you pay attention to people like me who are really paying attention to this stuff. And, you know, we tend to update when new things come out, but it is challenging to keep up with what it's truly capable of. It is worth taking the time to learn because so many people are going out and buying purpose built tools that they as extra subscriptions of things that they could totally just easily do in their chat GPT account or their Claude account
Yeah.
at the same, like probably have better results than with the purpose built tool.
So, one of the things that is kind of a fundamental difference between Claude and the others is they generally do not search the internet. They seem to have an ethics policy that's a little cleaner. Probably were trained on the internet, but they do not. You can't. It won't go out. What I found is it will, if you give it a link to an image, it'll pull the image and read the image. But beyond that, you can't tell it to go out and train on a data set like you can with ChatGPT, unlikely with Gemini. And that's kind of one of the key differentiators. And I've also noticed that the ChatGPT seems to be a little bit more advanced at the multiple modes of input, right? Like it's one of the first that has voice input. I'm sure Claude is coming, but it seems like ChatGPT, because it can search the internet, has the capability of being up to the minute depending on how you use it. Do you find that to be true?
So, any of these tools that search the internet, what you like, it is important to understand. And like, hey, by the time somebody's listening to
If
this,
you
who
if
knows?
you tell
Like
it, if you
Claude,
tell
Claude might have the ability to
but
search the internet at that
but
point.
what
So
I
we
meant
don't
is if
know.
you tell it to search the
Yeah.
internet, it could get up to the if you give it a good data source, right?
So, what's going to happen is it's not actually updating the training. Okay. So, it is going to be the same. If you say, hey, Chat GPT, I need you to go and like search the internet and get information about Taylor Swift's Eras tour in 2024 and like all the things that have happened. And like, I want to know in like late 2024, the things that happened and like what surprise songs did she, I don't know, whatever you want to get on this. What it's going to do is it's going to go do an internet search using Bing, and it's, you know, and Google might do it using Google, and it's going to read a page or two or three. And it's going to take that and it's going to incorporate it into its response. What it is not going to do is read the entire internet of everything on that topic and be up to date in its training on that topic. So it's, if you want it to know something specific that is, since it does know its data training cutoff. So if you ask it at any given time, like, hey, when are you trained through of whatever model you're using, it should be able to tell you if you need to know. But if you do that, it's not going to be like, now I know everything on that.
It's probably going to forget about it later,
learned.
is what you're saying. It's not going to keep it in its long-term memory, right?
It's not going to keep it in its long-term memory, but it's also not going to be fully versed in it.
I
Right.
see. Right.
So like if I wanted to ask it about like the hurricane, like there's been some major hurricanes this year.
Right.
If I wanted to ask it about, you know, tell me about like what's going on with the recovery in North Carolina after Helene, it's going to go and it's going to read a page or a page or two, a news article or two, maybe three, and then it's going to come back and give me that answer. But it's not, that does not mean it knows everything that's on the internet that's happening on that topic. It's no different than whatever, if you did a search and you happen to read a few things and you were like, okay, now I understand from the perspective of those sources, versus if you're talking like things that are more in the past where it's been trained on the entire internet, essentially, it has a much wider corpus of knowledge that it's pulling from about every topic, so it can talk about it a little bit more. So it's a subtle difference, but it's important because it's not really that different than if you just like copied and pasted that article in versus like it actually having the knowledge of the topic when you're using it for internet searching.
Do you feel like even Google's Gemini is the same? Like they have
It's the
cutoff
same way.
dates? They're not
Yeah.
constantly learning. They just have,
I don't know if Gemini will tell you because I don't know if I've asked it like about the cutoff dates, but
yeah.
it definitely is not like in my experience, it does not seem like their training is 100% up to date. And there is a reason that these companies do that. It is largely a safety thing. So what happens is when they go out and they train the models with like they put in all of this new data, it's like doing all of this teaching, they need to go in and they need to safety test, which they have people that actually have conversations with the AI
Yeah.
and try to get
The
the
red
AI
team,
to,
right? Red
yeah, the
teaming.
red team, and they try to get it to do all the things it's not supposed to do. And you should actually be really glad they don't just release new models that are up to date completely without doing that, because this is how, yeah, sometimes it's annoying, right? Like I wanted the AI to do something for me with my dad the other day. I was like trying to get it to make like sound effects for me on Chat GPT, and it was just like, I can't do that. And I was like, you used to be able to do that. But like it would just refuse and refuse. Safety parameters they put in there. It was annoying because I wasn't trying to use it for harm,
Yeah.
but that is there to prevent people from doing harmful things with this technology that are bad for all of us. So
Love
you're
it.
actually glad that they do this red teaming and that they like have this lag time. And I just don't foresee in any time soon that this lag time completely goes away because of that safety factor.
Okay, so we've spent a lot of time talking about all the different forms of input, which includes voice, text, files,
Mhm.
the ability to see things, like images and all that kind of fun stuff. The output, surprisingly, for a lot of people, they don't realize that you can do a lot more than just text. So talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so that's the next thing you need to understand is how can I get my outputs? You can do beyond the text, you can do tables, which just like in line within, which that's pretty simple. But you could also ask it to create, depending on the tool you're using, you could maybe create code. You might be able to create images. You might be able to create infographics. So, like actually running like Python code and creating graphics out of that code.
Hmm.
So, graphs, word clouds, that kind of thing, or the graphics could be like artistic coming through an image generator, more like Dolly type of a image generator, if you're familiar with that. So like Chat GPT can make you more artistic images or photos, things like that. You can, with some of these tools, you can create audio. So actual like AI voiceovers are a possibility. You might be able to create Word documents or Google documents or CSV files or Excel files or PDF files. It really, that's the kind of stuff you should have an awareness if you have a need. Figure out what kind of stuff your tool can create besides just writing text for you. And also with text, realize like you maybe need it to be formatted in Markdown, or you maybe need it to be formatted in HTML. Like it could write you that text in different formats beyond just plain text. It could give you formatting, headlines, subheadlines, bullet points. Just direct it how you want that response, and it will give it to you however you want it.
I love it. That is so cool. And
So
it's
cool.
starting to blow people's minds a little bit, right? Because it's kind of capable of doing just about anything. I mean, I haven't yet seen the ability to drop an audio file in, but I'm sure it's coming in the large
Oh, you
language
can do that.
models. You can take like an MP3 file and drop it in there.
Not inside Chat GPT. Well, it depends on what you want to do with it. Like
Well,
if
I
you
mean,
wanted to
if I
take,
wanted to listen to it, you know what I mean? But I
yeah,
know you
yeah.
can give it a YouTube link and it will, but I'm thinking it just pulls the transcript. You know what I'm saying?
YouTube is pulling the transcript.
Yeah.
When we're talking today, you can't like put it in and have it listen inside Chat GPT, but you could easily spin up like a automation that uses their Whisper transcription tool,
Yeah.
and it can do that. Now you can get like a transcript in the app, so you could just play your audio file and have it listen,
Yeah.
and then it
Yeah.
can
It's true.
understand
But I'm
it.
sure it's coming. It's probably just
Oh,
it,
there's no way that's not coming.
yeah.
I mean, that they already know how to do it. It's just like actually building it as a
Yeah.
feature. That's pretty basic
Yeah.
as far as where we are right now.
So
It's crazy how fast it comes out, but
yeah.
I wanna tell you, you said about, like, it's starting to blow people's minds. I've seen an interesting thing with adoption is that there people tend to go through this curve of an experience, and they start out and they're like, they've never used it, they've heard the hype, they're a little skeptical, but they're like, "Okay, I'm gonna try this." So they have, like, they're curious and they got this perception. It's like, "Okay, cool." Then they use it. Usually perception increases a bit when they first use it because something really cool happens. They're like, whoa, I didn't realize it could do that. They use it a bit more, and that perception craters. Forget blowing people's minds. Then they start going, this isn't ready for prime time. It's not giving me what I want. They don't know how to communicate with it. They don't know how to get what they want. They think it's overhyped. Most people are walking away at that point. I mean, I've watched this
Oh,
over
and
and
that's a
over and over.
serious problem. They have no idea what they're missing, right?
They have no idea what they're missing. And then there's a segment, probably the people who like are the type of people listening to this podcast that are like, I know other people are getting good stuff out of this. So I'm going to learn. I'm going to take what I'm learning and I'm going to experiment. And I'm going to experiment and I'm going to apply, see what works for me. And when that happens, you start getting higher and higher perception of the tools till you get to the point where I don't go more than a day or two without being completely mind blowing at something I got one of these
Oh,
tools to do.
yeah.
Either because a new feature comes out or because I figure out something I could do or I have some need and I'm like, I'm just going to try. And I know enough about the tool to get it to do it. I don't go, and people who are heavy users don't go more than a day or two, 3 days without being like, my mind is completely blown with what this technology is capable of.
100%. We just released our 2024 Generative AI Marketing Industry Report, and 37% of the 1,254 marketers we surveyed use it daily. And when you add the weekly in there, it's like 64%. This is becoming a normal part of the workflow for marketers. And a lot of people who originally tried this and walked away from it, it's kind of like anything else that you might have dismissed. And then all of a sudden everybody's singing the praises. And then you come back around for another take at it. And you're like, okay, maybe I need to pay attention to this darn thing because maybe it's gotten smarter. And that's the key thing everybody needs to understand. It is evolving so fast. Would you agree?
Oh my gosh, it's like absolutely mind blowing how fast it is evolving. And like the models, I mean, both by them adding new features or coming out with new models, but also the models are just gradually getting smarter over time. And they keep getting like slightly adjusted. And so, like, it's just getting better and better. Like, it's mind boggling to me how fast this technology is getting smarter and better and more capable. And then you compound that with if you're learning how to use it and get the smarter, more capable responses out of it, you put those two things together and it's like, oh my gosh, I literally have an expert to work on anything with me at any given time and give me skills I've never learned how to do. And it's just wild.
Well, and then the next level, really, you kind of hinted already at prompt chaining, but let's talk about automation just for a little bit. We don't need to go very deep into it, but I want people to understand what that could open up.
Yeah, so I love AI automation. With automation, you're not necessarily going to use like Chat GPT or Claude in the form that you're used to using them of that chat interface. Instead, what you're doing is you're going to tap into the APIs for these. So it's getting a little more technical, but you could use a tool like Zapier or Make.com, depending on what you have access to. There's some Respell is one that's like AI native to do it, that they've made it for this. And you basically put prompts in a series. So the output from one flows into the next one, flows into the next one. And you can have an action that you take or do trigger these prompts to run automatically and then send the output wherever you want. So for example, I have lots of business ones, but forget business for a minute. Let's do a fun one. I just went to Europe recently, and every time I go on a trip, I'm like, I wish I had a journal. Like, I wish I journaled, but like I may carry a journal, but I'm so tired after like day of travel. I never write in my journal. So I was like, you know what? My dad said he wanted to journal. He was traveling with me. And I was like, why don't I build us an AI automation so that we really do this? And what we're going to do, what I ended up building was on my cell phone, on my iPhone, I would open the voice memo. So this was not in an AI tool at all, just the normal voice notes, and hit record every night. And I would just ramble about my day. We woke up this morning and had a really good hotel breakfast, blah, blah, blah. Just talk about every single thing. I would be looking through my photos so I'd remember what we did. I'd look at my credit card receipts, name whatever of where we were going. And then I would email that to myself. And I set up like just a Gmail that it tags it when it came to like that extension of my email. And I would email it to myself
But
in the
like
body
like
of,
Nicole plus trip at whatever, right?
yeah, it was
Okay.
like Nicole plus journal or something. I don't know,
Yeah.
something like that at my email address. And so when I sent it, it tagged it to trigger the automation. And it triggered differently. Like if it came from my email address, it triggered one. If it came from my dad's email address, it triggered another, like automation. And in the body of the email, I would just write the names of the places because it may misunderstand the name of the restaurant that's in a foreign country. So I'd just type them in so it would have it in the body of the email because that fed into my prompt. But then as soon as I hit send on that voice memo with the words typed in, it would label it in my Gmail, which triggered a Zapier automation. And that Zapier automation took that, transcribed it. So listened to it, transcribed it, applied all of the spelling that I had just put in the email. And it wrote me a journal entry. It wrote up a bulleted list of my trip notes and what I thought of all the things that I did. And it thought through, can I write travel reviews for like TripAdvisor or Google Maps or any of these for any of the things she mentioned? Was there, that's a site, a restaurant, a hotel? Based off of what she said in this, can I write her reviews? And it would then put it all into a Google Doc and email me. And so I would get an email with a link to my journal, a link to the reviews, a link to the trip notes. So I have it in different formats, and a separate email with all of the reviews in case I wanted to post them.
Wow.
And so it, 10 minutes every night I could ramble to my phone. And now I had all of that. And I wouldn't have done it, right? Like, this is what I'm saying. Like, it's opening up things you wouldn't have otherwise been able to do or done. I just wouldn't have had a trip journal, right? Like, it didn't replace me journaling. It just, I wouldn't have
It
had a
enabled
journal.
you to do something you didn't
Yeah.
have time to do otherwise.
Right. And I came home and I like have a fully documented 2.5 week trip to Europe that every single thing I did, I'll have that memory. If a friend wants to go, I can just copy them whatever notes and what I thought of everything. And it's really accurate.
That is so
And
cool.
it's just so cool that you can do that kind of thing. Now you could think through any kind of work process. You could do the same thing, but it's way more fun on a vacation. So.
Yeah. Nicole, this has been amazing. If people want to connect with you on the socials, what's your preferred platform? And then if they want to reach out to you because they're interested in some of your services, where do you want to send them?
So LinkedIn for where I'm posting content, by far, that's really my platform. So just my name on LinkedIn.
Leffer for those that are listening. Yep. Okay.
Yes. And so Nicole Leffer on LinkedIn. And then my website is just NicoleLeffer.com. And on my website, you can find course info, training info for your team. If you need to reach out to me, like email addresses and everything on there. You can send me messages on LinkedIn too. It may take me a little longer to like get to it on LinkedIn because I get a lot, but I do check them. It just might be a little bit delayed over there. So those are the two best ways to connect.
Nicole Leffer, thank you so much for sharing all your awesome insights with us today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. This was a really fun conversation.